Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are
the FAIRtax Guys.
And Ron, it's almost Thanksgiving.
That's right. When this airs, it's going to be 2 days before Thanksgiving.
Yes, and when this airs, I'm going to be on an airplane headed to Alabama to spend Thanksgiving with my mother. So that works.
Yeah. Okay, so we're pre-recording this, and it is going to be a Thanksgiving show. I'm going to start with a grassroots corner. This is good because this is about a fella that Elaine and I know personally from our work up at Orange Park. Now, the Grassroots Corner is put out by Jim Bennett, who's a board member with the national group, Americans for Fair Taxation, and he is the Grassroots coordinator. Orange Park, Florida, annual Fall Festival. Manny Salinas, a friend of ours, of Orange Park, Florida, it's near Jacksonville, gives us the following pointers about drawing people in and getting them to put their information down for the fair tax. In other words, sign up to be included in the database.
Yes.
That's very important.
Pay attention, folks. There's some good ideas here.
Yeah. And there'll be a test at the end. Anyways, fair tax volunteers had a booth set up, funded and managed by Manny Salinas at the Orange Park 37th Annual Fall Festival. This was the weekend of October 19th and 20th, Saturday and Sunday. Despite rain closing the booth for half of Saturday, Manny and the other volunteers, Red Martin, Kathleen Pereira, and Paul Livingston, where have we heard that name before, had a record success of 97 people stopping by to give their information to be included in the database. That's great. That really is good. A 10-year history indicates expected daily sign-up of maybe 27 to 30. So why was there a big increase on Sunday? Well, first of all, it was a beautiful fall day, and a lot of people were out. But what brought them to the booth? Two things. All right, they started targeting people's clothing. Now, here's what I mean by that: their clothing and their hats. For instance, if somebody walked by with a Harley t-shirt, they would say, Harley riders like the fair tax. Okay?
That'll get their attention.
If somebody was wearing a MAGA hat, they would say, Trump knows about the fair tax. For stars and stripes or military clothing, the fair tax is about freedom and liberty. And for the sports team, like the Jaguars fan love the fair tax. Of course, that is in Jaguars country. So
it is.
Yeah, so
that's true.
Probably wouldn't be too many people saying Giants, because anyways. And for the Nike logo, just do it. Right.
Yeah.
So this is fun and it turns head. Second, along with calling out, have one in your hand one of the FAIRtax palm cards and a prebate card, and as the people, if the people are interested and come over to talk to you, then you can extend this to them, and that engages them. So anyways, obviously this technique worked because they got probably 3 times as many sign-ups as they have in previous years. And it says you can make your own FAIRtax booth and logo from the promotional materials at the FAIRtax Logo Store, which we'll concentrate on later, fairtaxlogostore.org. Special thanks to Manny Salinas for his time, energy, and resources dedicated to the FAIRtax cause and for submitting this write-up. Harvesting names, as Manny and his crew did, and getting them to Adam Yomtov, iwanttaxreform@gmail.com, gives the registrants important weekly exposure. So Manny and his crew are an inspiration for other fair taxes all over the country to get out there and sell the brand. And Elaine and I know Manny because we used to have monthly meetings in Orange Park. Manny was always there whenever we held an event, like we would set up a booth at this festival or an art festival or something like that. Manny was there every time. So thank you, Manny. This is a good report, and we appreciate your continued efforts.
And again,
that's our grassroots. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
If you have something you need to send to Jim, jim.bennett at FAIRtax.org. Jim.Bennett@FAIRtax.org.
Yeah, we want to publish your story as part of the FAIRtax Friday. And of course, we'll mention it here on FAIRtax Power Radio and all. So we're thankful for folks like Manny.
Yeah.
We're thankful for a lot of folks that are working with the FAIRtax movement. That's why we decided to start adding this Grassroots Corner segment to just about all of our FAIRtax Power Radio things, episodes. But with the Thanksgiving holiday just a couple of days away, I mean, I said I do not want to turn this into one of those boring, TV award shows. I want to thank this and I want to thank that and I want to thank that, and everybody's tuning out and says, all right. So we'll, but we do want to express a few things. We'll try to put some substantive content into it as well. But you got some really good friends who have done a lot for the FAIRtax. They have kind of had to, for health issues, back away from it.
Yep, I'm going to start with this book here, all right?
Oh, I'm trying to set you up, and you're going off in another direction.
Yeah,
okay.
Because I want to make sure that I don't forget to do this, because if I do, I'll never hear the end of it from my wife. All right, because she pointed this out just before the episode started. All right,
she's sitting right over there looking at
this.
You.
This is a very simple introduction to the FAIRtax. It's written by Terry Tibbetts. He's a local volunteer here. He's an author of another book and so forth, and he volunteered to write this thing. It's a very simple introduction. It could be for youngsters. It could be for anybody who's not at all familiar with the FAIRtax and wants an easy introduction. That's a good one. You can get this on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and the Apple Bookstore. The printed, you can get a digital copy for your iPad or your Barnes & Noble Nook, or what I think it's a Nook, whatever the Barnes & Noble digital platform is. Yeah, you can download it as a digital copy. If you buy the print copy, it's going to cost about $9 something, just under $10. All right, because apparently paper is a lot more expensive than electrons. So anyways, thanks, Terry, for doing that. And also, our good friends, the people who got us involved in the FAIRtax.
Yeah, I've already set you up for the Rudlicks. Go.
All right, yeah. Nick and Barb Rudlick. They go back a long time. Take a look at this picture of Nick and Barb in front of their PT Cruiser. They bought a little PT Cruiser and put FAIRtax logos all over this. Front, top, bottom, side. I mean, well, I'm not sure if they were on the bottom, but they were on the sides, on the front, on the back. And that PT Cruiser was in parades. They drove it around here and there and so forth.
You can see that coming blocks away.
Yeah, it was great. All right, here's another picture of it. And then, these folks were getting on in years, and at one point the doctor told Nick, look, you're going to have to kind of scale it back. You can't be doing as much as you used to, because Nick had he had heart issues, okay? So his idea of scaling back was to buy a 33-foot motorhome, put FAIRtax logos all over it. Here's a shot of it, with, again, Nick and Barb standing there, okay? And they drove that all over Florida.
They had a place to relax.
Yeah, exactly. So with this one, they could go someplace and stay overnight. It was no big deal. So that was Nick's idea of scaling back, okay, from the PT Cruiser.
Yes, and there have been some famous people aboard that thing. Neil Bortz has set foot in that.
That's right. Yep, Neil Bortz. I believe Rich Nugent, who was a congressman here in Florida, he's been in there and so forth. And we had some people, because they took it to DeLand, and Rudy Tremmel had us involved in an event out there, and there were some politicians. All right, let's take a look at the another way of scaling back. They refurbished their golf cart. All right, Nick and Barb live in a place where they don't golf, but they have a golf cart because it's an easy way of getting around.
There's a huge retirement place down there where they live called the Villages. I imagine you may have heard of it because it's world famous, and everybody down there has at least 4 golf carts out there.
It seems like it, yeah. And so they refurbished their golf cart, and you can see these pictures here, and they put FAIRtax logos over that. Even to the point where, and I don't want to get too personal, but Nick had a medical issue. He had to use a walker for a while. And of course, here's a picture of Nick and his walker with what?
FAIRtax signs all over it.
Yeah. I put this on Facebook, and I called it the FAIRtax Walker Brigade. Yeah. So thanks, Nick and Barb. I mean, these are amazing people. They're the folks that got my wife and I involved, and then Bob joined us and so forth, and Randy. So it's been great. And I also want to mention Alan Moss. Take a look at this we call it the FAIRtax Hot Rod. Alan, as this was his retirement project, he pretty much built this hot rod from scratch. It's a 32 Ford pickup. He had the cab, everything else he built. He's got a big V8 in there, and he made a frame, and we got him the FAIRtax banners to put on the back. He's been in parades. We've been at events where they park it out front. This thing is a head turner. That really gets people's attention, all right? Mm-hmm. So we're lucky enough to have some fantastic volunteers here. But thanks to all those, and thanks to all the volunteers across the country. Without your efforts, we're going to get this done, and it'll be because of your efforts that we get it done. And we just have to keep plugging away.
Indeed. Well, I am thankful, really, for a couple of really encouraging developments that we've seen relative to the FAIRtax here the past couple of weeks. I remember I told you I was in a restaurant the other day with my FAIRtax shirt on, and somebody was saying, gee, I sure am glad to see that there's still some life in this movement. Mm-hmm. But there is still a lot of life in this movement, and a lot of it was detailed in the chairman's report.
Yeah.
That just came out. Now, by the time this airs, it'll be a couple of weeks old. But the state of Texas, which never has had a state income tax, the state of Texas enacted a constitutional amendment to their state constitution specifically prohibiting an income tax. So they outlawed something that they never had because the governor and a bipartisan group of Texas legislators. Yep. I mean, it's amending the state constitution is about as difficult as amending the federal constitution. It takes a large majority in both houses of the legislature, and 74% of Texas voters says we don't want an income tax.
Does that tell you something?
It did.
Income tax is not a popular idea.
So I was amazed that many people vote, considering how the Congress critters and their friends in the media are always talking about you got to use the tax code for social engineering, you got to use the tax code for this, that, and the other. But the people in Texas have got it right, because they said no way. That is an amazing percentage. 74% of Texas voters says no, we don't have an income tax now, and we don't ever want one.
Yep.
And Steve made a point in the chairman's report that state of Texas has really thrown down the gauntlet to the other 41 states who do impose a personal income tax at the state level, and says we are keeping our vast economic advantage over your guys because we're never going to have an income tax.
Yep, and people are moving from the high tax states to especially the states with no income tax, such as Texas and Florida.
Yeah, yep. So all of the people out there, many of whom I don't know by name, in fact, none of whom I know by name, that were behind that effort, that were behind that constitutional amendment, which again took bipartisan support.
Yeah.
There were not enough Republicans alone to meet the threshold that it takes to put an issue like that before the voters.
That's right.
So it was bipartisan in nature in the House and in the Senate out in Texas. And of course, when you get 74% of the votes, that's bipartisan support as well. So that just kind of underscores what we've been saying about the FAIRtax all along. No income tax is a great idea, because no income tax means no withholding from your paycheck. No income tax means no filling out tax returns. No income tax means no IRS or whatever the state agency would be to enforce the state income tax. There's so much wrong with an income tax that it needs to go away at the federal level and be replaced with a fair tax. But again, something else that was really encouraging that was also referenced in this same chairman's report, we've got two states.
That's right.
Alabama, where I'm going, in fact, I will be there by the time this airs, but Alabama and Georgia are both considering replacing their state income tax with a retail consumption tax based on the fair tax, complete with a prebate.
That's right. That's a big deal.
Now, I do know that in Alabama, the bill to do that has already been pre-filed.
Yeah, their legislature doesn't work all year. All right, so they will reconvene in January, and the bill has already, like you say, has been pre-filed. They've got everything in place to get this thing passed. Let's hope they do, because that'll be a good example. So you got Texas, Alabama is about to do this. Let's hope Georgia follows suit. Florida, we don't have a prebate, but we don't have an income tax, and we got to make sure that we never have one.
Absolutely. So that's it. There is definitely movement going on in the fair tax movement, and I love seeing it at the state level, because that is the way the founding fathers envisioned things.
Yeah.
That the states would be the laboratories for trying out things, and the best practices that these state level things can come up with could be adopted on a national scale. And I guarantee you, if Alabama and Georgia both implement a state level fair tax, and I don't think they really call it by that name, but it is a state tax modeled on the fair tax, which includes the prebate. That's something that no sales tax in existence right now has.
Yeah.
Again, the prebate, if you've been living under a rock here, the prebate is a tax refund, where the taxes that you pay on your spending up to the poverty level, i.e. what you have to spend to stay alive, to keep the basic necessities in your house, that is not taxable under the fair tax, and I would assume under the Alabama or Georgia tax either. Of course, it's going to be collected from you at the cash register, because you can't impose or not impose the tax depending on whether your level of spending is. You can't keep track of how much everybody has spent, so you collect that tax on every purchase you make of new goods and services. But you get back in a tax refund monthly. Not once a year like you do with the IRS, but everybody under these plans get a tax refund monthly, refunding back to them the taxes that were collected from them on the spending for their basic necessities. So again, you don't take a dime out of your pocket to pay your taxes under the fair tax or the state tax that's designed on it until your spending exceeds the poverty level. You feed your family before you feed the government with the fair tax. And I'm ecstatic to see this happening at the state level, and I guarantee you, when that goes into effect in either one or both of those states, and folks see what the effect is going to be, there is going to be a mad scramble to replace state level income taxes with a fair tax like consumption tax. And when that happens, then the next step, we get rid of the federal income tax and the IRS and everything that goes with it. So hopefully Alabama and Georgia are going to lead the way to show the nation that a fair tax model works.
It'll be interesting. Hopefully, like you say, that will be accomplished this coming year. And in a few years, hopefully we'll have the fair tax by then, but it'll be interesting to watch what happens. Remember the episode we did on how money walks?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
That
From high taxes states to low tax states or no tax states, all right? And you'll have two more that get rid of the income tax in that case, and you'll have two more reasons for people to leave the high tax states to go to the sales tax only states.
Yes, but none of the states that currently do not have an income tax, they have, of course, their sales taxes, but none of them are really based on the fair tax with the prebate.
Right.
The prebate being the primary feature that sets the fair tax apart from every other consumption tax that you know anything about. So when people in Alabama and Georgia start getting that prebate every month, and wow, and then there's no more state withholding from their paychecks as well. So again, there is a lot to like with a fair tax. We've got about 10 minutes left. That we've got some little bullet points here for people who may have been living under a rock and don't know about the fair tax, and of course because it is not being discussed in the national media, and sometimes it's mentioned in the same breath with a flat tax, which is still a tax on income. See, that's a flat tax. It's still a tax on income. I'm pointing to my Rubik's Cube for those of you who are listening to the audio-only podcast here. That, the income tax is represented by my 11 by 11 cube that has just scrambled all the pieces. The flat tax is slightly smaller, but it's still a tax on income. You still have to file a tax return. You still have your payroll taxes. You still have withholding from your paycheck. You still have the IRS. You still got everything wrong with an income tax with the flat tax because the flat tax is an income tax.
And as we saw in last week's episode, that will quickly become that one.
Yes, it's started to get that way now. I've twisted it a couple of times. But the fair tax and the flat tax are as different as day and night, even though they're mentioned in the same breath a lot of times.
The fair tax is very simple.
Yeah, the fair tax is my little 2x2, which really ought to be just a single block that doesn't turn at all, because it really doesn't have hardly any moving parts at all compared to the income tax.
Okay.
But the fair tax, it's simple, it's fair, and the prebate makes it progressive. Right. Means if you are spending at the poverty level, your out-of-pocket tax rate is 0. The prebate will give back to you every dime that you pay in taxes. If you spend under the poverty level, you're making money. Your tax rate is negative.
And you know,
fair tax.
Some of the people will say now, oh, well, the current income tax is progressive. We have these different brackets, and it increases as your income goes up. Yeah, but then what else do? They put all kinds of loopholes. So those people that are at the upper bracket, the higher incomes, they can afford to hire the tax attorneys and the CPAs to legally reduce their tax burden. So they never pay the actual rate. Their effective rate is much lower. So they can claim that the income tax is progressive, but it's not. Not with all the loopholes, not with the 1,200 proposals that we talked about last week, that Congress is working on. So, yep. All right, what else we got
if I could pick out, though, of course, there are several things about the fair tax that I love. No withholding. Yeah. And no payroll taxes. So without getting a raise, you get a significant increase in your take-home pay.
Yeah.
You'll be bringing home, your full gross amount minus any voluntary deductions like for insurance or credit union savings. But the federal government will no longer take a big chunk of your money before you get it under the fair tax. You never have to file another tax return. Even though, you and I are retired, our tax returns are fairly simple. We still have to spend the money for TurboTax or some other tax preparation thing. And we still, even as simple as our returns are, still have to spend a couple hours going through all the questions they ask you.
Not to mention all the record keeping along the whole year.
Okay, so more money in your pocket, no tax returns, no IRS. But this is important to me. The fair tax puts Social Security and Medicare on a much firmer financial foundation than the other. Remember, right now, Social Security and Medicare are being funded by a payroll tax, i.e., only people who are working for a paycheck are paying into the system. And again, Steve made a note in one of his chairman's reports not long ago. Automation is reducing the number of workers. More and more things are becoming automated. So as the number of workers working for a paycheck gets smaller and the number of people retiring and demanding benefits gets bigger, something's got to give. So the fair tax turns Social Security and Medicare, takes it off the backs of just the working people, and now, of the fair tax, everyone who buys stuff, in other words, actually everyone whose purchases of new goods and services rises above the poverty level, they are supporting Social Security and Medicare because there is a percentage of it's in the bill that the percentage of fair tax revenue is earmarked for Social Security and Medicare. And I'd like to get everybody supporting my Social Security, thank you, and not just those that are working for a paycheck.
Yep. So,
indeed.
Okay, yeah. So Social Security and Medicare, as Bob said, on a much more stable basis. All right.
Yes.
Better than they are now. Okay.
And it gets rid of the IRS.
Yeah, it gets rid of the IRS. Yeah,
the only tax proposal that gets rid of the IRS, because it's the only tax proposal that gets rid of the income tax.
Yeah, I'm surprised that isn't on the top of the list here.
Yeah, well, you made the list. You can put it up
I know. Seniors receive 100% of their Social Security payments or their retirement distributions.
No withholding.
No withholding, okay? Withholding goes away. So you get more of what you're entitled to. No gift or estate taxes.
Well, I like the fact that the fair tax makes taxpayers out of criminals and the evasion goes to next to nothing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, no tax on investments. So when, during your working years and you're saving up for retirement, all right, you can, put them into whatever investment interest that you think is best and it draws interest, it won't be taxed.
Yep.
And you won't have anything where you put it in pre-tax dollars and then you take it out when your retirement, when your tax rate is lower. There won't be any consideration for that.
Nope.
You can save it in any instrument you want and try to get the maximum amount of return on your investment, and there'll be no tax. Just think how simple it'll be.
How simple that would be.
Yep.
And how in the world, because we thought, if you haven't seen last week's FAIRtax Power Radio episode about how incredibly unstable the income tax is.
Yeah.
From 7 brackets to 14 brackets to 21 brackets to 56 brackets to back down to 54 brackets.
Yeah.
And
I never knew prior to last week's episode and the preparation for it that at one time there were 56 income brackets in the income tax. That's crazy.
Absolutely. Okay, well, our time's getting away from us here really quick, but there are a lot of good things about the FAIRtax. If you would like to learn about it, I suggest you go to FAIRtax.org. They have got a lot of good information there at FAIRtax.org, including a fairly extensive FAQ section. So if you've got questions about how the FAIRtax would work in a particular situation, or how is it going to affect seniors, or how is it going to affect business owners, how is it going to affect one group or another, go out to FAIRtax.org. You can spend all day reading the white papers and reading the FAQs and stuff at FAIRtax.org. So let me send you there to go there to start your research on how the FAIRtax works. And I guarantee you, once you understand it, you'll demand it.
Yeah, that's right. So, yep, there's lots of good stuff. Millions of jobs created, and so forth. But anyways, we're going to have to wrap this up pretty quickly. So I'm going to do my FAIRtax logo store. All
Good.
right.
I'm going to drink the rest of my cheer wine.
Please remember, you can buy these at the FAIRtax Logo Store, FAIRtaxLogoStore.org. These are great because they're plastic. They don't want you taking signs into a town hall. But you can kind of smuggle this in because
now we wouldn't ever encourage people to break the law now, would we? No.
Well, no. According to this program, no, we'd never do that. Anyways, but you could if you wanted to. And you get those. You get earrings. They have earrings. Take a look at these. My wife tells me that they look kind of large and so forth. They have nice tote bags that we've talked about before. This one is a little more heavy duty. It's got zipper on top. It's a good bag. Or they just got the simple blue shopping bags with the FAIRtax logo on the store. Great tumblers. How about that? Okay. You get a set of those, and when you have friends over for dinner, you make sure you serve your drinks in these things. All right. The umbrellas are back. They were gone for a while, but they're now back. Here's a picture of my wife with the umbrella. Okay, I won't open up that one here in the studio. Palm cards. We talked about these. All right, you get each card is two-sided. It's got a lot of good information about the FAIRtax on it with some websites and so forth.
People that send you political fundraising mail need to get one of those back.
Yep. And you can buy a packet of them, which we recommend. Keep them handy. We always give one out whenever we go out to dinner and we sign the check. They get this along with the signed check. All right, that's their second tip. Okay, the prebate cards, business size card, basic information about the FAIRtax on one side, prebate schedule on the back. These are very popular, very popular. Oh,
all right.
And we already talked about the scrolling banner, but go to FAIRtaxLogoStore.org, FAIRtaxLogoStore.org. Peruse through there. There's lots of good stuff. You're going to find something, pens, campaign buttons, all right, like this, okay, FAIRtaxLogoStore.org. Visibly demonstrate your support for the FAIRtax. Get a travel mug or something and take it to work with you, and maybe generate a little interest with your coworkers and talk about the FAIRtax.
Indeed. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And we thank each and every one of you for watching the show, listening to the podcast, sharing these streams on Facebook. We had a record audience for the last couple of episodes, so we're happy to do that. So again, if you would tell your friends, tell your family about FAIRtax Power Radio, share the video when you see it, and of course, drop us a note, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com, and leave us a note on our Facebook page, or go to FAIRtaxGuys.com. That's the repository of the archive of the FAIRtax Power Radio episodes. Go back and watch the If Money Walk or How Money Walks.
Yeah,
that's really good.
That was back there a couple of months.
That's back there a way, but that's a really good one.
Have to do that again sometime.
Indeed.
So, all right. So I think that's about it, huh?
Okay, then we'll wrap it up. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you again that the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it. Thank you.
So what do you need from me to get these taxes collected?
Glad you asked, because there is a fair amount of information you need to be aware of.
That's your tax plan?
Oh, no, this is just the revisions for this year's tax plan. What I need from you is you need to keep track of all of your income, as well as any taxes that you've already paid. Also, any gifts that you received or gifts you've given to churches or charities or individuals throughout the entire year. Do you do any side jobs?
Every now and again.
Great, because there's some more information about that right here. Everything you need to know right here. So just simply compile that, send it in to us. Be careful, make sure there's no mistakes. If we do find mistakes were made, we can fine you or, throw you in jail. So you might want to be aware of that.
And what do you need from me?
As an individual, nothing. As a business owner, or if you're doing side jobs, yes, you would have to collect taxes on that, but, it's all right here.
Can I get a copy of that?